Scott Pilgrim. This franchise has been such a powerhouse in every form of media that it's ever graced. The comic books are peak, I own every single black and white edition, and plan to get the color editions after selling my left kidney. The movie is a cult classic even though it bombed at the box office, but some of the greatest movies of all time also bombed at the box office too, so I don't even worry about that. The video game brought back a fire pixel art style, and it's just as clean as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Plus, whenever the music is adapted, we only get melodic masterpieces. And now an anime with the comic art style has been released. This was the only thing missing that the franchise needed to be perfect. And the original cast have returned to do voice work for the anime. How did they manage to do this? So naturally, after watching the show, I wanted to revisit the series since I haven't been too invested in it since 2021. So I slapped on the movie, and 2 years later, I was reintroduced to the titular character of Scott Pilgrim, which reopened my eyes to the fact that Scott Pilgrim is a loser! This guy is literally the main villain of his own story, physically and literally. And to those who've only seen the movie, then you won't even know how much of a bum he actually is, because he's 10 times worse in the comics, and even in the show. Now, before I delve into Scott Pilgrim's life and absolutely violate his career, I do want to say that the entire point of Scott's character is that he is a loser and he sucks. The point of the story is that Scott is an irresponsible bum and he learns to treat himself and others better. But this video is me explaining what makes Scott so trash, and also I want to highlight how he improves. I will be jumping back and forth between moments in the comics and the movie, since I'm mostly talking about Scott as an individual, not the plot. First of all, Scott Pilgrim is lazy. This man has probably the least drive out of any human being I've ever seen in my entire life. The book starts with Scott being a jobless 23-year-old who lives with his roommate in a one-room apartment. Scott normally wakes up in the afternoon whilst everyone else is off working or, living their lives. And although he has the ability to cook quite well, he just won't do it unless it's for a date or something like that. He is in a band, which is something at least, but the dude constantly bails on them during their practice, either by him not being present or by him daydreaming half the time. He also acts like he's the main character of the group for some reason. Look, I'm sorry pal, but there's no main characters in life. This isn't a movie, and it sure doesn't have your name as the title. He does eventually get a job, but his profession is literally dishwashing. Dishwashing. Some of Scott's lazy attitude and apathy has been said to be a result of his breakup with MV Adams. But bro, get over it. It was literally a year ago. Second of all, Scott Pilgrim is a prick and is extremely delusional. In the Scott Pilgrim series, everything constantly revolves around him. And I don't mean this as in the book is all about him, even though it is. I mean this as Scott will literally make everything about himself. And when it isn't to do with him, in Scott Pilgrim's precious little life, everybody else has done wrong and he's the victim. I actually can't with this guy. To begin, Scott and his bandmate Kim were briefly together in high school until he moved away to another area in Canada. He constantly acts as if their relationship ended in good terms, but we don't even truly get to see what happened until the final book, where Scott and Kim return to their hometown and she lays into him and tells him he needs to stop being a baby by realizing you can't block out bad things that happen to you. Or as you can put it in her words, if you keep forgetting your mistakes, you'll just keep making them again. So Scott eventually accepts his past mistakes and goes on to fight Gideon. I mean, he gets packed up in the process, but plot armor saves him and he wins. Now, to my next point. Scott Pilgrim is down bad. He sees Ramona, a girl who he finds attractive, 2 times and literally stalks her so he can get a chance to ask her out. Which first of all is out of order, and second of all, he did this twice basically. After fumbling a pickup line at his friend's birthday party, and then again by tricking her into coming to his house since she's an Amazon delivery worker. So he secures her number and goes out with her one night. They hit off and they go out again, only to be ambushed by one of her exes who challenges him to a death battle for Ramona. So Scott kills the guy and thinks it's over, only for Ramona to be like, actually, you have to fight 6 more of my evil exes.
Huh?
And this man is so down bad. He agrees, murders a whole gang of people all for this one girl, who he went on 1.5 dates with. Low-key, I would do the same thing though. Now guys, I'm gonna now tell you Scott Pilgrim's biggest crime, and why he's the only protagonist that I don't want to be like. Okay? So, Scott Pilgrim is a nonce.
I'm a nonce.
The literal first words to be said in the whole comic series is, "Scott Pilgrim is dating a high schooler?"
Huh?
That is actually the most sorry thing I've ever heard in my whole life. Bro, the way how this man tries to justify his actions and make it seem cool and actually convince one of his homies that he should get a high school girlfriend too is beyond me. I honestly think that Scott Pilgrim is a true anti-hero and might be more conflicted than Deadpool. And then in the new series as well, they do try to kind of make it less noncy, but he's still a terrible guy in the show as well. He does basically the same thing, being with Knives, a 17-year-old whilst he's 23, mind you, and cheating on her with Ramona. Then, a future version of himself kidnaps his 23-year-old self, makes everyone believe he died, has a whole funeral for him, only for in the last few episodes to come out and be like, "Oh, I was only stopping him from getting married to Ramona because in the end, when me and Ramona got divorced, I stayed in my room for 13 years. What? But at the end of every different variation of Scott Pilgrim's story, he learns that he needs to change his ways. He stops being lazy, and he stops treating other people like trash. But yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching, and God bless.
Scott.
Scott.